So what can I personally contribute to the discussion of the entire George Floyd murder manslaughter at the behest of self-entitled right privileged police officers that hasn't been expressed already through the cries of the black community and has been for decades, long before this. As a result of this self-entitlement that has plagued common sense justice for minority citizens, we have a new civil unrest across the United States, seemingly exceeding those that arose from the deaths of Michael Brown and Philando Castle. Though the term exceeding is probably a rather pedestrian term in this case. I'm a father of a mixed child. I raise her on my own. As a parent, I have to prepare her for this reality. We live in a rather strange community ourselves in the Midwest. For example, at my job, I've had to personally tell my superiors to never ever put me near two specific coworkers that are my senior because of their racial bias. Because the company, for whatever reason, refuses to remind them of what our employee handbook says about racial prejudice and discrimination. It says no tolerance of it. I've been watching these riots, reading the same whitewashed statements being made as every other before it. Why can't they just protest peacefully? People like to say, specifically white people. And my answer to that, if I was asked, is you had your chance. This man, named Colin Kaepernick, gave you that chance. This man gave you nothing but peaceful protesting of this very same systemic racial issue. And what did you do? You threatened him. You burned his jerseys. You made shooting range targets out of his picture. You called the dingleberry in the White House, who then went to football games so he could video himself being captured leaving these games on taxpayer money when he saw any player take a kneel for political gain. You had your chance for peaceful protesting. You had your chance there. In fact, you have yet another chance here. Because there are peaceful protesters supporting George Floyd. And guess what happens to them? The fucking Badgers tear gas them. You had your chance at peaceful protesting. You've had it for decades. As John Kennedy once said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. To also quote Martin Luther King Jr., a riot is the language of the unheard. Now this may sound like a digression, but I have a point with saying this, so just hear me out. Over 3 years ago, I wrote a Batman Origins screenplay. I'm a writer. My passion in writing is in poetry, but I've written short stories, I've written plays, and I've never written screenplays, movie adaptations. So I figured I'd start with something that was simple, where the characters are already made, and I would just have to think of the story. So I chose Batman. Anyways, I wrote my own Batman Origins movie adaptation screenplay 3 years ago. In it, my Bruce Wayne character attempts to join the GCPD, the Gotham City Police Department, to satisfy his need to fight crime hands-on after his parents' murder as a child. However, as a result, he was exposed to the actual corruption of the police department during his training. And it was so bad that he realized that other than his billionaire status, he would not have as much of a profound impact as he would like fighting crime if he joined a corrupt police department. Later on, we learn that the Gotham City Police Department has a bare minimum training academy as a cost-effective measure. But in actuality, the money that is saved on this form of training is funneled into the police captain's political campaign for mayor. The training in question centers entirely on demographics. Should have turned my phone off there. The training centers around entirely on demographics. Mainly minority demographics. And the results of this training is seen in one scene where then Lieutenant Gordon is summoned to his daughter's school because it has been evacuated over a black student's suicide attempt on the roof. The impact mattress that's used in case someone jumps and they land on the mattress so they don't get injured, it was laid out, but it was not aired up. And not a single patrolman who was on site was manning the area of where she would be jumping from to not only air up the impact mattress, but also to try and talk her down. Because they were not trained to save demographics. They were trained to clean up after demographics. And this is just a minor example. I have a lot of other examples in my adaptation regarding the treatment of minorities and their utilization in the judicial system. But it's entirely based off the actions and the frame of minds of our current reality with the police military state of mind, with relatively easy to diffuse situations like someone selling loose cigarettes, i.e. Eric Garner, or somebody possibly committing fraud like George Floyd. Both situations simply required cuffs and an escort. You can see it on video. Yet both men wound up dead from some sort of loss in translation of common sense and a need to display their unearned privileges because of a man-made badge. There is no excuse for this stupidity, and sure as fuck no excuse for any of the 4 officers on duty in George Floyd's situation to possess badges. Because in spite of the suspects' lifelessness, they were more concerned about arguing with protesters who were literally just telling them to check his pulse. The cops shouted things like, "Don't do drugs," as if it constituted as an argument, when this was supposedly a fraud bust and not a drug bust. But even so, what does this have to do with arresting someone via lethal force who put up no resistance whatsoever? Nothing can justify this immense retardation of our society. There needs to be a revamping of how our law enforcers are trained, to say the least, because I see no reason to see my Batman script as a work of fiction anymore. I don't. There's no incentive. The badge itself is not a code of honor. The creed that it's supposed to symbolize, to protect and serve, is a code of honor. The badge itself is just a mirror. And frankly, it's time all these police officers, every single one of them, look into this mirror and see what is happening.